The Ford Ranchero GT is one of the most unique vehicles of its time, and combines a classic muscle car look with a practical truck design. Nowadays, people know Ford for being a reasonably diverse automaker, but not necessarily for being experimental or groundbreaking. However, Ford does have its fair share of off-the-wall rides. One prime example is the Ford Ranchero. The Ford Ranchero is a coupe utility vehicle that Ford made from 1957 until '79. Essentially, the Ranchero is a truck that uses a two-door station wagon platform. There's also the Ford Ranchero GT for people seeking more power, which was only an option beginning in the late 1960s. People like the Ford Ranchero GT for many reasons. This utility vehicle offers powerful performance as well as a look that stood out from everything else on the road at the time. Of course, there have since been other vehicles similar to the Ranchero GT, but few of these could offer anything of note to the car world. One unforgettable example of a failed attempt is the Chevrolet SSR. Luckily, the Ranchero was a success because the automaker found ways to make it something the market actually wanted. In addition, the automaker substantially evolved the Ranchero's look over time on the market. When it comes to classic cars, the Ranchero GT is one of the most exciting. The Ford Ranchero GT is an icon in the car community. The car may not be everyone's first choice, but it brought something new to the table, especially for the times. Here's a detailed look at the Ford Ranchero GT. The Ford Ranchero GT engine produces out-of-this-world performance. Though the Ranchero was a long-running vehicle from Ford, the GT option didn't arrive until near the end. However, the automaker produced a few excellent models of the GT version, with the 1970 model being one of the most iconic. The 1970 Ford Ranchero GT has various engine options, including one truly special powerhouse. The standard 1970 Ford Ranchero GT engine is a 302 cubic inch V8 with a maximum output of 220 horsepower and a torque of 300 pounds. Next up of the 1980 Ford Ranchero GT engine options is a 351 Cleveland two-barrel with a maximum output of 250 horsepower. Finally, the next level option produced 300 horsepower. However, what really makes the Ranchero GT special are the Cobra jet engine options. The ultimate choice out of the three available is the 429 Super Cobra jet, which has a maximum output of 375 horsepower. The Ford Ranchero GT is a rear-wheel drive vehicle with various transmission options. This vehicle not only comes with numerous engine options, but also competes with some of the best muscle cars of the era in speed. Many would love to see this rare Ford in action today, especially thanks to the Cobra jet engine options. The Ford Ranchero GT exterior is beyond unique. As mentioned before, one of the things that make the Ford Ranchero GT so unique is that the automaker built it on a station wagon platform. In addition, the car is so well received by car enthusiasts of today because of the exterior changes that occurred from when the car debuted in the late 1950s until it concluded production. This is important because earlier models of the vehicle were larger and almost looked more like full-on trucks, with an emphasis on the almost. However, later versions had much more of the muscle car look that was all the rage. For this reason, we like the late 1960s and 70s versions the best. Truthfully, the Ranchero GT exterior looks like two cars put together, but this concept works and happens to be one of the most daring rides of the time. The Ford Ranchero GT also stands out because it's a long car, with a wheelbase of around 114 inches. The car has a 6.5-foot bed, which makes it not only stunning but also practical. The Ford Ranchero GT interior is classic and simple. The Ford Ranchero GT has an interior representative of its times. The Ford Ranchero GT interior has a classic and simple look that many car collectors find valuable. In terms of seating, some versions have bucket seats, but others have bench seats. The vehicle has a relatively large dashboard, and everything in the car seems to fall below that, which gives the car an understated appearance. As is characteristic of this era of cars, the Ranchero GT has a reasonably large gearbox. It also has a fairly straightforward instrument cluster. Again, this car is the very definition of classic and should get more recognition in the car world. The price of the Ford Ranchero GT varies quite a bit. But, of course, it also depends greatly on the status of the car, given its age. According to J.D. Power, the Ford Ranchero GT has an average value of $25,100. However, the price could be much higher. The Ford Ranchero GT is so expensive partly because it's a pretty rare classic car. The Ford Ranchero GT is an all-round great vehicle that has withstood the test of time. It may not be on the tips of everyone's tongues, but it's an icon nonetheless. Ford has always been known for their trucks worldwide. In fact, the Ford F-Series trucks have been the best-selling vehicle in the United States for decades now. Unlike other automakers that stick to the basics with their truck offerings, Ford has been known for taking more creative liberties with their trucks. This can be seen today with both the F-150 Lightning and the Maverick. Both are unique iterations of trucks that are some of the first of its kind in the modern truck market. One of the classic examples of Ford taking a different approach to the truck market is with their Ranchero line. The Ranchero was one of the classic trucks that was lower to the ground and had a sleeker design than a normal pickup truck of the day. The Ranchero was not a niche truck either. Over the course of its life, Ford sold more than 500,000 examples. Granted, this style and market of truck has not been around or popular in the US for decades now. But the Ford Ranchero has left a very unique legacy and deserves credit for what it has done right. The Ford Ranchero was one of the earliest competitors in this part of the truck segment. The debut model year for the Ranchero was in 1957. One of the main appeals of the Ranchero and this segment in general was that buyers had both the utility of a truck but the ease of use and drivability of a traditional sedan. The 1950s versions of the Ranchero still had strong design cues from other Ford cars. The outline of the first years of the Ranchero looked as if it was a traditional sedan but with the greenhouse not extending beyond the front seats. All Rancheros regardless of the year was only offered in a two-door setup with a bed that was about 5 feet in length. As with a lot of trucks today, the Ford Ranchero ran the gamut from basic to luxurious. On the lower end, the Ranchero was stripped of a lot of features and was marketed towards those who need a basic work truck to use on the farm or other places. On the higher end, the Ranchero sported more visual flair with two-tone paint and stainless steel exterior accents. The Ranchero was offered from the 1957 model year all the way to 1979. For most vehicles, a production run of 22 years would mean that it had about 4 generations produced. But the Ford Ranchero had a staggering 7 generations. The third generation Ranchero only lasted 1 year, which is highly uncommon for a mainstream vehicle like this. Over all 7 generations, the Ranchero had a variety of engines that powered it. That is it for today. If you have enjoyed it, make sure you like and subscribe.